"Do you hear me, Paul?" she said between her teeth, very close to him now, and staring at him in such an angry way, he closed his eyes. "If you don't answer me, do you know what I'm going to do?" "Punish?" Paul said in his tiniest child voice. "No, I'm not going to punish this time," Ethel said. "You're not?" he cried, a new fear and surprise coming now into his tired eyes, and then staring at her eyes, he began to cry with panicky terror, for it seemed to him then that in the whole world there were just the two of them, him and Ethel. "You remember where they sent Aunt Grace," Ethel said with terrible knowledge. His crying redoubled in fury, some of his spit flying out onto the cold calcimine of the walls. He kept turning the while to look at the close confines of the staircase, as though to find some place where he could see things outside. "Do you remember where they sent her?" Ethel said in a quiet, patient voice, like a woman who has endured every unreasonable, disrespectful action from a child whom she still can patiently love. "Yes, yes, Ethel," Paul cried hysterically. "Tell Ethel where they sent Aunt Grace," she said with the same patience and kind restraint. "I didn't know they sent little boys there," Paul said. "You're more than a little boy now," Ethel replied. "You're old enough. And if you don't tell Ethel why you look at the photographs all the time, we'll have to send you to the mental hospital with the bars." "I don't know why I look at them, dear Ethel," he said now in a very feeble but wildly tense voice, and he began petting the fur on her house slippers. "I think you do, Paul," she said quietly, but he could hear her gentle, patient tone disappearing, and he half raised his hands as though to protect him from anything this woman might now do. "But I don't know why I look at them," he repeated, screaming, and he threw his arms suddenly around her legs. She moved back, but still smiling her patient, knowing, forgiving smile. "All right for you, Paul." When she said that, "all right for you," it always meant the end of any understanding or reasoning with her. "Where are we going?" he cried, as she ushered him through the door into the kitchen. "We're going to the basement, of course," she replied. They had never gone there together before, and the terror of what might happen to him now gave him a kind of quiet that enabled him to walk steady down the long, irregular steps. "You carry the boxes of pictures, Paul," she said, "since you like them so much." "No, no," Paul cried. "Carry them," she commanded, giving them to him. He held them before him, and when they reached the floor of the basement, she opened the furnace, and tightening the cord of her bathrobe, she said coldly, her white face lighted up by the fire, "Throw the pictures into the furnace door, Paul." He stared at her as though all the nightmares had come true, the complete and final fear of what may happen in living had unfolded itself at last. "They're Daddy," he said in a voice neither of them recognized. "You had your choice," she said coolly. "You prefer a dead man to your own mother. Either you throw his pictures in the fire, for they're what make you sick, or you will go where they sent Aunt Grace." He began running around the room now, much like a small bird which has escaped from a pet shop into the confusion of a city street and making odd little sounds that she did not recognize could come from his own lungs. "I am not going to stand for your clowning," she called out, but as though to an empty room. As he ran round and round the small room with the boxes of photographs pressed against him, some of the pictures fell upon the floor, and these he stopped and tried to recapture, at the same time holding the boxes tight against him and making, as he picked them up, frothing cries of impotence and acute grief. Ethel herself stared at him, incredulous. He not only could not be recognized as her son, he no longer looked like a child, but in his small, unmended nightshirt, like some crippled and dying animal running hopelessly from its pain. "Give me those pictures," she shouted, and she seized a few which he held in his fingers and threw them quickly into the fire. Then, turning back, she moved to take the candy boxes from him. But the final sight of him made her stop. He had crouched on the floor and, bending his stomach over the boxes, hissed at her, so that she stopped short, not seeing any way to get at him, seeing no way to bring him back, while from his mouth black, thick strings of something slipped out, as though he had spewed out the heart of his grief.